Picture this. 5 years ago, you were making $42,000 a year. You remember thinking, if I could just make $70,000, I'd finally feel comfortable. I could breathe. Fast forward to today. You got the promotions, you landed the better job. You're now making $78,000, almost double what you used to make. And yet here you are, feeling the exact same financial stress you felt at $42,000. Actually, if you're being honest, you might feel more stressed now. And the craziest part, you're already thinking, if I could just hit $100,000, then I'd finally feel comfortable. Here's what I'll prove to you today. This pattern isn't a personal failure and more money won't fix it. My name is Ivan, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, human psychology, and why people who double their income often feel exactly as broke as before. If you've ever wondered why hitting income milestones never delivers the peace you expected, make sure to subscribe to the channel and hit that like button if this video helps you understand what's actually happening. Think about fitness for a second. If someone keeps gaining weight despite eating less, they don't just need more willpower, they need to understand their metabolism. Your relationship with money works the same way. If you keep earning more but never feel richer, you don't need more income. You need to understand the psychological machine that's keeping you stuck, the treadmill you can't see. What you're experiencing has a name, the hedonic treadmill. Psychologists Philip Brickman and Donald Campbell coined this term in the 1970s, and here's the devastatingly simple idea. Your brain has a remarkable ability to adapt to both positive and negative changes in your circumstances and eventually return to a stable baseline level of happiness. Let me make this concrete with real research. A famous 1978 study found that lottery winners were not significantly happier than control groups just 1 year after winning. In some cases, they actually derived less pleasure from everyday activities than before winning. Think about that. People who won life-changing money ended up enjoying simple pleasures less than people who never won anything. Here's what this means for you. Your brain is running the same adaptation program on every raise and promotion you've ever received. Research suggests that for most positive financial changes, you're looking at 3 to 6 months before your brain recalibrates and that new income level feels completely normal. That $60,000 salary that felt incredible in January, by July, it's just your salary. The consequence of not understanding this is you keep chasing raises thinking the next one will finally be enough when your brain is literally designed to make sure it never is. Recognize that feeling broke at $78,000 after feeling broke at $42,000 isn't a money problem. It's a psychological problem that more money can't solve. The income threshold nobody talks about. Here's where the numbers get really interesting and also kind of disturbing. A 2010 study by Daniel Kahneman analyzed over 450,000 responses and found that emotional well-being rises with income, but only up to about $75,000 per year. After that threshold, making more money had no measurable impact on day-to-day happiness. Now adjusted for inflation, that number today is somewhere around $95,000 to $100,000. A more recent 2021 study found that happiness does continue to rise past that threshold, but at a significantly diminished rate. Here's the practical math. If moving from $50,000 to $100,000 brings you 20 units of increased happiness, moving from $100,000 to $200,000 might only bring you 5 or 6 additional units. Let that sink in. You doubled your income. You more than doubled your stress. You probably doubled your working hours. And you got a quarter of the emotional return. This is diminishing marginal utility applied to your entire life, and nobody talks about this when they're telling you to hustle harder. Here's the psychology most people miss. The financial advice industry has a vested interest in keeping you on that treadmill running faster. Because if you ever stopped and realized the destination doesn't exist, you might stop chasing income and start optimizing for something else entirely. If you're already making $75,000 to $100,000, stop assuming your next raise will change how you feel. It won't. You need a different strategy entirely. Where your raise actually goes. Let me show you how this plays out in real dollars, because abstract psychology is one thing, but watching your actual money evaporate is another. Say you're 30 years old, making $60,000. After taxes, you're taking home about $47,000 or $3,900 per month. Essential expenses come out to around $2,400. That leaves you with $1,500 of breathing room. You get promoted. Now you're making $80,000. After taxes, you're taking home roughly $62,000, about $5,200 per month. But here's what happens. You move to a nicer apartment because you deserve it, adding $500 to your rent. You upgrade your car, adding $150 to monthly payments. You start eating out more because you're busy and successful, adding 300 to food. You subscribe to more services and buy nicer work clothes. Suddenly, your expenses have ballooned to 3,800. Your discretionary income, 1,400. That's actually less than before your raise. You made 20,000 more per year and you somehow have less breathing room. This is lifestyle inflation, and it's the physical manifestation of the hedonic treadmill in your bank account. Now, here's the part that really gets me. According to a 2023 Bank of America report, 52% of Americans making between $100,000 and $150,000 describe themselves as living paycheck to paycheck. People making over $100,000, which puts them in the top 20% of household incomes, are financially stressed monthly. A 2022 survey found that 36% of people making over $200,000 also identify as paycheck to paycheck. At a certain point, you have to stop blaming the economy and start looking at psychology. These aren't people who can't afford their lives. These are people whose lives expanded to consume whatever resources became available. Before your next raise, write down exactly how you'll allocate that extra money. If you don't decide in advance, your lifestyle will automatically expand to consume it and you'll feel exactly as broke as before. The arrival fallacy that keeps you running. Here's another way this trap operates that almost nobody talks about. It's called the arrival fallacy. This is the illusion that once you arrive at a certain destination, you'll be happy. Once you hit 6 figures, once you pay off the house, once you hit $1 million in net worth, once you retire. The fallacy isn't that those things don't matter. The fallacy is that happiness exists at the destination rather than in the journey. Here's what research actually shows. People are happiest when they're making progress toward meaningful goals, not when they've achieved them. The anticipation of a vacation provides more happiness than the vacation itself. The process of building something provides more satisfaction than finishing it. Let me make this practical. If you're postponing happiness, waiting until you arrive financially to feel good about your life, you're making a catastrophic error. You're sacrificing the journey, which is where happiness actually lives, for an arrival that will feel hollow when you get there. I've seen people spend 20 years grinding toward financial independence, hit their number, and immediately feel lost. They adapted. The goal that sustained them was gone. The happiness they expected didn't materialize. They realized too late that they traded their 30s and 40s for a promise their brain was never going to keep. Here's the psychology. Your brain releases dopamine during pursuit, not achievement. The chase feels better than the catch. This means every financial milestone you hit will feel less satisfying than you expect while you're pursuing the next one. You're biochemically programmed to never feel like you've arrived. Stop waiting until you hit some income number to feel successful. If you can't find satisfaction in your current progress, you won't find it at the destination either. Material purchases versus experiences. Now, let's talk about what you're spending money on, because this might be the most actionable insight in this entire video. Researchers have consistently found that experiential purchases, things like travel, concerts, learning new skills, time with people you love, provide more lasting happiness than material purchases. Here's why this matters. First, experiences are harder to adapt to because they exist as memories rather than physical objects. You can't get used to a memory the way you get used to a couch. Second, experiences often involve social connection, which is one of the strongest predictors of well-being. Third, experiences become part of your identity in a way that possessions don't. A 2014 study found that waiting for an experience generates more happiness than waiting for a material purchase, and the positive emotions from experiences last longer after the fact. Now, here's the financial twist. Experiences are often cheaper than the material upgrades people make instead. Let me give you concrete numbers. A weekend camping trip with friends might cost $200. The SUV you bought partly to justify camping trips you rarely take cost $40,000. A cooking class costs maybe $100 and provides genuine skill and enjoyment. The kitchen renovation you did because your kitchen wasn't nice enough cost $15,000 and you stopped noticing it after 3 months. We're systematically overspending on things that provide less happiness and underspending on things that provide more. This isn't just bad psychology, it's bad math. Rich Richard spends $3,000 per year on experiences that create lasting memories and identity. Poor Peter spends $15,000 on material upgrades he adapts to within months. 5 years later, Rich Richard has a life full of stories and skills. Poor Peter has stuff he doesn't notice anymore. Track your spending for the last 3 months. Calculate how much went to material purchases versus experiences. If material purchases dominate, you're optimizing for the wrong thing, and that's why more money never feels like enough. The lifestyle anchor that actually works. So what do you actually do with this information? How do you step off the treadmill without giving up on financial success? Let me give you something practical. Create what I call a lifestyle anchor. This is a commitment about how much of future raises you'll allow to flow into lifestyle upgrades versus investments. For most people, I recommend somewhere between a 70-30 to 50-50 split, with the higher percentage going toward investing. So if you get a $10,000 raise, $3,000 can flow into lifestyle improvements and $7,000 goes straight into investments or debt payoff. Here's what this does. First, it prevents the automatic lifestyle inflation that keeps you on the treadmill. Second, the lifestyle improvements you do make feel more intentional and therefore more satisfying, because you're choosing them consciously rather than drifting into them. The key is to set this rule when you're thinking clearly, not in the moment when you're excited about a raise and already mentally spending it. Let me show you the math on this over time. Say you're making $60,000 and you get a $10,000 raise every 2 years. If you let lifestyle inflation consume the entire raise, you'll be making $100,000 in 8 years and still feel broke. But if you anchor 70% of each raise to investing, you'll be making $100,000 with only $42,000 of lifestyle creep, meaning your investments are growing by $7,000 per year on raises alone before accounting for investment returns. Over those 8 years, that's $56,000 in additional investments just from disciplined raise allocation. At 8% returns, that becomes roughly $75,000. Now you're making $100,000, living on $82,000, and sitting on an extra $75,000 in investments. That's the difference between feeling broke and feeling secure at the exact same income level. Right now, before your next raise, write down your lifestyle anchor percentage. Make it automatic. When the raise hits, set up an automatic transfer for the investment portion before you even see that money in your checking account. The gratitude practice that breaks adaptation. Here's something that sounds soft, but is actually backed by serious research. Practice negative visualization. Stoic philosophers have been doing this for 2,000 years, and studies show it actually increases gratitude and appreciation for current circumstances without requiring any external change. The idea is simple. Regularly imagine losing the things you currently have: your apartment, your job, your car, your relationships, not to make yourself miserable, but to break the adaptation that makes you take these things for granted. Try this once a week. Take 10 minutes to vividly imagine your life if you suddenly lost your job and had to go back to whatever you were earning 5 years ago. Feel the anxiety of that scenario, then open your eyes and realize you still have what you have. That gap between imagined loss and current reality is where gratitude lives, and gratitude is one of the only known antidotes to hedonic adaptation. Here's the practical money part. When you appreciate what you already have, you stop feeling broke despite having more than past you ever dreamed of. You break the cycle where every new income level feels insufficient within months. You don't need to make more money to feel richer. You need to stop adapting to what you already have. Set a weekly reminder on your phone. Spend 10 minutes imagining life at your income from 5 years ago. Notice how that makes your current situation feel abundant by comparison. Do this consistently and watch your relationship with money transform. Optimize for time, not more money. Here's where people get it completely backwards. They sacrifice time to earn money, then use that money to buy conveniences that save small amounts of time, never realizing the trade is deeply unfavorable. A 2017 study found that people who spent money on time-saving purchases reported greater life satisfaction than those who spent on material goods. But here's the key insight. The ultimate time-saving purchase is having enough money that you don't need to work for more. Every dollar you invest instead of spending is a dollar that eventually works for you, buying back hours of your life. At a 4% safe withdrawal rate, every $25 you invest buys you $1 of permanent annual passive income. Let me make this concrete. If you invest an extra $7,000 per year from disciplined raise allocation, that's $280 of annual passive income at a 4% withdrawal rate. Do that for 10 years while investments compound at 8%, and you've got about $102,000 invested, generating $4,000 annually in passive income. That's not retirement, but it's meaningful walking away money that changes your psychology. Here's the shift. Instead of running faster on the treadmill, to buy more stuff you're running, to buy your time back. That's a race that actually has a finish line. Rich Richard invests 70% of raises and after 10 years has meaningful passive income, reducing financial stress. Poor Peter spends every raise on lifestyle upgrades and after 10 years makes more money but feels exactly as broke as before. Calculate your current annual spending. Multiply by 25. That's your financial independence number at a 4% withdrawal rate. Now, calculate how much you need to invest monthly to hit that in 15 or 20 years. That's your actual goal, not the next raise. The hedonic treadmill isn't evil. It's actually a survival mechanism that helped our ancestors stay motivated in a world of genuine scarcity. The problem is we're running ancient software in a world of artificial abundance surrounded by advertising designed to exploit our psychological vulnerabilities. Every billboard and Instagram ad is trying to convince you that happiness is one purchase away. And your brain, with its tendency to adapt to everything good, makes this feel true even when you know it's not. You're not broken for feeling this way. You're human. But being human also means you have the capacity to recognize your programming and choose differently. You can decide that enough is a number, not a feeling. You can anchor lifestyle creep before it happens. You can invest in experiences over things and time over money. You can step off the treadmill not because you've given up on success, but because you've realized success was never waiting at the end of an endless run.